So first off, where do vulnerabilities come from? Kind of, so in the Garmin example I mentioned, how did those attackers gain entry into Garmin systems in the first place? Um, there's there can be numerous sources of vulnerabilities or categories of vulnerabilities. One of them, a frequent one, is organizational policies or the lack thereof, and organizational culture. If there's, we'll talk more about this today, but uh, one of the really important things to do, and something that you all should be able to do as small business owners and managers for little to no expense, is put good policies in place to ensure best practices are being taken related to cybersecurity. And closely related to that is working to establish a culture of security throughout your entire organization. And that it starts with you. Certainly, if you're the owner or the manager of the business, cultural anything starts at the top, whether that's office culture or whether it's security culture. Vulnerabilities can come also from individual people, and those might be internal people, also known as, in some cases, if those are intentional, they are known as an insider threat, or they may be unintentional. They may be your employees and they just accidentally click on a link that was malicious, and they weren't trying to get your company hacked, but they did. That can be an example as well. External people, these are the attackers. These are the hackers that people kind of typically think about most often. Vulnerabilities can be technological. They could be, for example, there might be a piece of software that you use in your company, and a security flaw is discovered in that piece of software. And the vendor of the software might be Microsoft, for example. They might offer a patch to fix that flaw in the software. But if you're not regularly updating that software and you don't have the patch, you might be vulnerable. And that can be an example of a technological source of vulnerability. Frequently, it's not just one of these. It's usually going to be at least two of these, or maybe it's going to be all of these. But these are kind of some general categories of vulnerabilities. So one of the things that we'll spend the most time talking about today is the idea of defense in depth. And this is just kind of an intro to it. And we'll go in more detail in the next few slides. But the idea here is really using layered and in some cases redundant security measures to protect your organization. And it's a framework that was originally developed by the NSA, the National Security Agency, and it in turn was based on military strategy, traditional military strategy that had the exact same name. And today it's widespread in lots of industries, not just defense. If you think back to, I don't know, first grade, second grade, when you were learning about medieval history, or maybe you're teaching your kids, helping your kids learn medieval history now, especially if they're learning from home. There's the idea of the castle in medieval history, one of the most iconic things from in our imaginations of that period. If you think of a typical medieval castle, it might look something like this. And so in this graphic, you have the outer wall, and if there's an army and they're coming to besiege this castle, the first thing they have to do is get through that outer wall. If they do that, they come across this moat. And in this graphic, the drawbridge is down, but if the castle's defending, it would be up. So they'd have to figure out a way to get across the moat. And then when and if they do that, they've got another wall to get through still, which is this wall here. If they get inside of that, they're in the inner courtyard, but they still are not in the keep, which is the main kind of the heart of the castle, and there's more defenses there. And there's also all of these little parapets and openings where soldiers were shooting arrows through while the attackers were trying to get in, and all of that. So the point is, castles used many different layers of security to keep from potential attackers, to keep them from breaching the walls. And the exact same idea holds for cybersecurity. You shouldn't rely only on one measure for safeguarding your organization. Different measures address different issues, and the best strategy is a layered strategy that you can implement through defense in depth. So the kind of the traditional defense in depth model looks something like this. It starts with, depending on which way you're looking at it, it starts with perimeter security, which is kind of akin to that outer castle wall. It's your first line of defense for the outside world. The next layer of defense is your network security. That might be, you could maybe consider that akin to the moat or maybe the inner wall. From there, you've got your endpoint security measures, application security measures, data security measures, and then at the core of all of these things are your critical assets. And these are the things that you're trying to protect from a cyber attack in the first place. And that can be a whole range of different things, and it'll be different for each one of you depending on the nature of your business. So if you're a manufacturing business, it's possible you have proprietary processes that are kind of your competitive advantage. That could potentially be a critical asset. Kind of the documentation of that process, that could be a critical asset. Certainly, any customer payment information. For example, if you're a coffee shop and you're running transactions day in and day out for people buying coffee, that's certainly a critical asset. A lot of industries and a lot of businesses rely on their customer lists, setting aside payment information, but just the customer list for many companies is considered proprietary and valuable. So that could be a critical asset. If your business is this type of business, you might have patents or patentable material and designs. Those could be potentially critical assets. It could be any of those. It could be a mix of those. It could be something else.